What the food poisoning, frozen mussels, and wrinkle treatment have in common? Just one word: botulinum. It's the deadliest toxin on Earth, a molecule that paralyzes with just a whisper of a dose. For years, botulinum was feared as the cause of botulism, a terrifying illness from contaminated food. But here is the twist: that same poison has become transformed into medical marvel. And so today, it's used to calm muscle spasm, relieve migraines, treat excessive sweating, and yes, smooth wrinkles. And when that toxin slips into the wrong place at the wrong time, we call it botulism, a paralyzing illness that once terrified communities. Join me to answer some very salient questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining Central Podcast again today. This is where we try to intersect neuroscience, health, as well as human experience. My name is Osarime Abe, and I'll be hosting this very interesting topic that has to do with a neurotoxin, and this is botulinum. This toxin has toxic effect. It has become a powerful ally for us. It has revolutionized into neurological disorder treatment, smoothing wrinkles, treating some chronic pains. But it being a neurotoxin is something we cannot slide. And that is why we'll have to still talk about some of the neurotoxicological aspects of botulinum today. How do we get it? How do we have contact with it? What are some of the downstream effects it could have? While we also appreciate the medical and treatment that has advanced through botulinum. So to discuss this very important topic with me is Dr. Damus Kouassi, and he has some recent investigation on this mass botulism poisoning at Ivory Coast, and this has offered certain crucial insight into both the public health aspect as well as the scientific understanding of the neurotoxin itself. And so he will be discussing this with me today. Welcome to Sanitary Podcast, Dr. Kouassi. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Osarian. I'm excited to be here. I am Dr. Kouassi Damus Paquin, an epidemiologist at the National Institute of Public Health of Côte d'Ivoire, and also a lecturer and researcher at Alassane Ouattara University in Côte d'Ivoire. I work in the epidemiological surveillance department. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kouassi. So let's start by understanding what this organism really is. So we have a neurotoxin that we know how dangerous it may be, and I want you to kind of run us through what this Clostridium botulinum is as a bacteria and how we come in contact with it in our everyday environment, how people get to interact with it without even knowing. Go ahead, Dr. Kouassi.
Thank you. I would say that Clostridium botulinum is an anaerobic spore-forming bacterium that produces the neurotoxin botulism toxin. It is a causative agent of botulism, a severe and potentially fatal illness characterized by muscle paralysis. Clostridium botulinum is found in soil, marine sediments, and improperly preserved foods, like home-canned vegetable, fermented fish. It grows in low oxygen environments. Its optimal growth temperature is at 30 and 40 degrees Celsius. The toxins produced by the bacterium are destroyed by boiling around 100 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes, but spores require higher temperature before destroyed. Clostridium botulinum can cause botulinism through foodborne botulism by ingesting preformed toxin in contaminated foods, infant botulism, in which spores germinate in the infant gut, often from honey. You also have wound botulism, where spores enter wounds and produce toxins. And we have inhalation botulism that is very rare and only occurs from aerosolize, toxin exposure in lab accidents, and bioterrorism sometimes. So symptoms of botulism include blurred vision, muscle weakness, respiratory failure, and death if untreated.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kouassi. And a lot of us take some of those food poisons and we really don't know. You've talked about it even getting into wound and just through its spores. But I want to take you down to your research proper. You had an investigation in 2023 at Ivory Coast, and this involved a mass poisoning event that happened and affected multiple people. And you were able to do some epidemiological study around it. Then I want you to walk us through what really happened. What were some of the key factors that you were able to identify that led through to the outbreak first? Because this is key learning that we should have before even talking about what your investigation revealed. And how do you think botulinum could still pose public health challenge despite what it has become in our modern world?
Okay, in 2023, in Cote d'Ivoire, in a very small village of about 400 people in Boaké, it occurred a collective poisoning by Clostridium botulinum, following the worship of a fetish implanted in the ground of a house. And this fetish was made from clay containing yam, plantain, carrot, chicken blood, all in putrefaction, and all covered with a lid favorable to the development of Clostridium botulinum. So at each worship of this fetish, the fetish releases a pestilential odor as reported by the villagers. So we think that contamination must therefore have been by aerosol inhalation. So this poisoning caused a total of 22 deaths out of the 74 cases. Most of the cases, children and elderly people reside around the fetish when we made the investigation. So in response to this phenomenon, we destroyed the fetish, and we disinfected the place where it was implanted with chlorinated water. And as the other precaution, we also disinfected all the other homes in the village. The other patients were treated, the phenomenon stopped, but unfortunately we have deplored numerous deaths after 2 episodes of worship of this fetish. The phenomenon stopped and has not recurred.
Dr. Kouassi, if I understand you correctly, so after that 2023 event, have you had any other outbreak after that?
No. The outbreak the outbreak appeared twice.
Okay.
Because the fetish adoration were twice.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And that takes me to the next question, and this has to do with how botulinum has been able to incredibly become a potent neurological treatment. So when toxins enters human body, what are some of the things that happens when botulinum enters the body, especially at the cellular level? How does it hijack the nervous system? Because when you were introducing what Clostridium botulinum is and how it operates, you talked about it causing some neurological paralysis. And when left untreated, it could lead to death. And the death is usually very fast. So I want you to take us through the mechanism, how this becomes so effective and causing this paralysis.
Yeah. Yes. As you said, I will be very brief on this part because it's not my domain, but Clostridium botulinum produces botulinum toxin, which blocks the acetylcholine release at the neuromuscular junction, causing flaccid paralysis. So botulinum toxin are potent neurotoxin that target the nervous system, only the nervous system, and the toxin causes descending flaccid paralysis, which may lead to very life-threatening respiratory failure, and people can die when they are infected.
Thank you, Dr. Kouassi. I know you had research on this aspect and you witnessed firsthand what the neurotoxicological aspect of botulinum can be. So now with this medical marvel that we're having, which is quite fascinating, we have a lot of people taking Botox and they don't even know this is coming from something that has been identified as a neurotoxin. And it has been working well. It has also helped a lot in the pharmaceutical industry, a lot also in treating neurological disorder. So how have we transformed from this so-called deadly poison into medical tool? Same question also applies to what the mechanism is. I know this is not your core aspect, but what are some of the things that you've been able to see that you can use to explain what makes botulinum dangerous and also make it therapeutically valuable? What is the difference in their mechanism?
Yeah, the botulinum toxin is first purified, and when it's purified, it can be used in clinical to treat. It can be used clinically to treat muscle spasms and cosmetically to reduce wrinkles. So botulinum toxin, dual nature, as both a deadly poison and a medical treatment, stems from its potent ability to block acetylcholine release at nerve endings, inducing muscle paralysis. So while uncontrolled exposure can cause fetal respiratory paralysis and botulism, the same mechanism becomes therapeutically viable when applied in carefully controlled doses. Clinically, the toxin-targeted action allows it to temporarily relax overreactive or spasmic muscles, making it effective for treating conditions like chronic migraines, muscle disorders, and even cosmetic applications such as wrinkle reduction. So the key lies in administration. Precisely injected quantities produce localized effects without systemic spread, transforming a powerful neurotoxin into a safe and, I would say, versatile medical tool when used under professional supervision. So this remarkable duality demonstrates how understanding a toxin biological action can repurpose danger into clinical benefits.
Thank you, Dr. Kouassi, and that was very apt. I like the fact that you were able to make that distinct difference between what makes it toxic and emphasizing that it's still the same mechanism, just that it has to be professionally controlled, and also knowing what the dosage will be. Because when it comes to exposure that is not controlled, it's usually beyond the safe dosage. Thank you so much for touching that. And I would like to also emphasize that, please, Dr. Kouassi is a Francophone person. He speaks French, and he's trying as much as he can to also make this insight generalized. So that takes me to the next question. Again, this is more of a public health question. Dr. Kouassi, you are an epidemiologist, and I want you to take us to a more practical terms now when it comes to what concerns all people in the public. What practical advice can you give to people that are listening today who may have learned about this botulism and know how dangerous it can be and how marvelously great it can also be therapeutically, because you talked about it being useful in treating migraines and so many other neurological disorders. Based on your experience at Ivory Coast, what are some of the preventive mechanisms or preventive behaviors that you think could help botulism toxicity in our daily lives when we have encounter with them? Are there specific handling methods or warning signs we should look out for?
Yeah, in our case, this collective poison occurred I would say, in a rather particular context. So that is to say during a fetish worship and probably by aerosol inhalation. So it will perhaps be difficult to give specific prevention measures to this situation. However, the prevention of botulism is done by different measures. I would say that you have proper food preservation, for example, pressure canning, acidification. We also have keep clean. We have to people have to keep clean to keep clean foods. They should separate raw and cooked food. They have to cook thoroughly. They have to keep food at safe temperature and use safe water and raw material when cooking. Avoiding honey in infants under 1 year, and if they think that they have symptoms of botulism after eating some food, they have to search for prompt medical care. So the advice when you think that you have been poisoned, to go directly to hospital to search for care.
Thank you, Dr. Kouassi. So try to separate between your raw food and your cooked one, and always cook food well, attaining a stable temperature and keeping food at the right temperature. Avoid honey for infants less than 1 year. I hope I'm able to recall the points that you just mentioned, but I'll also try to highlight them. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Kouassi. Looking ahead, I know the time is fast spent, so I want to see if we could run up now because I wanted to ask more questions, but I would just say, if as an epidemiologist who has had the opportunity to conduct research on botulinum, and when you look back at what botulinum has become, how great it has now helped medicine, looking ahead, what are some of the things that you think excites you about botulinum, and if there are certain therapeutical applications that you feel may still come forth in the nearest future, or perhaps a warning danger that we need to be aware of? Maybe there are new ways we could harness some of this learning of botulinum into a more unique property? I hope you got my question.
Yes. I would say that botulinum toxin has expanded far beyond cosmetic use today, with growing therapeutic application across multiple medical fields. For example, in neurology, botulinum toxin is used to treat chronic migraines, neuralgias, dystonias. In psychiatric, the toxin is used include experimental treatment for depression and also Tourette syndrome by reducing motor tics. In urology, urologists employ the toxin for overactive bladder and interstitial cystitis. In gastroenterologists, they use the toxin for achalasia. We also have dermatological application that includes scar reduction and hyperhidrosis treatment, and so on. Ophthalmologists, they use also the toxin in strabismus and other disease. And so this toxin is I would say that is very useful in the field of medicine. However, I would say in medical cosmetic use, improper dosing of the toxin can lead to muscle weakness, breathing difficulties, or allergic reaction. So long-term overuse may cause muscle atrophy too. So I would say that people should avoid counterfeit or unregulated products of this toxin. A major concern is bioterrorism, because this toxin can be used in bioterrorism, and it can cause a lot of deaths. So this toxin should be controlled. It should be controlled. So a lot of measures, international measures, should be taken to preserve people from the misuse of this toxin.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kouassi. That last call was a public health call for proper control of this toxin, because as much beautiful as we may think it is, the toxicological aspect is also of concern, and that is why it's good we have someone who worked firsthand with people who died as a result of botulinum. Thank you so much, Dr. Kouassi, for sharing your incredible insight with us today during the course of this podcast. We are very happy that you took out time out of your very busy schedule and a short notice to have this conversation with us. Thank you. And to everyone who is listening, today's conversation perfectly illustrates one of the most profound principles that combines both neuroscience and medical principles, as well as public health. I belong to the school of thought that feels that natural healing is very important, but we can always try to unravel some of the mechanisms that underlies this true research. And that is why we should encourage all our researchers like Dr. Kouassi and others who are at the forefront of both the epidemiological aspect, the neuroscientific aspect, the biochemical aspect, trying to harness some of those findings to appropriately guide what we have in nature. You heard Dr. Kouassi say something around the mechanism with which botulinum operates, which is the same molecular precision with which it makes this toxin deadly, and exactly what makes it so therapeutically valuable. So it's a perfect metaphor to say that a scientific understanding could transform fear into hope, could transform danger into opportunity, and in this case, could transform poison into a medicine. But as Dr. Kouassi also reiterated, he reminded us that if we could transform some of these things, and whether we're preventing food poisoning or treating neurological disorder, the success lies in the understanding that we have of the mechanism. And that is one of the things that we are doing today. Respecting the risk, knowing the limits, knowing the dosage, knowing when not to cross the boundary. We've come to the end of today's podcast. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening in. Sanity Drive always try to bring us closer to some of the things that we don't really think about and are affecting our daily living. Again, I want to say a special thank you to Dr. Kouassi for joining me on the call. Thank you, everyone.
My pleasure. Thank you.